creator of a musical dynasty who ruled with fear and strict demands. How Joe Jackson left a steel mill to push his children into stardom, weaving a complicated dynamic that prompted superstar son Michael to leave his own father out of his will. He was both manager and father to one of the most famous musical acts in the world, a disciplinarian whose unwavering demands molded his sons and daughters into pop legends. Joe Jackson, who died today at the age of 89, became a music industry legend for his strictness, and also for his success. Under the patriarch's tutelage, the Jackson Five took the planet by storm, and son Michael and daughter Janet emerged as runaway stars. It all wasn't smooth sailing, however, as some children accused him of abuse, the family suffered estrangements and, most damningly, it was discovered that Jackson fathered a child with his mistress, with whom he had a 25-year affair. Jackson was born on July 26, 1928 to a high school teacher father and homemaker mother in Arkansas. He was the oldest of 5 children, but his parents split up when he was 12. His father headed to California, taking Joe with him, and his mother settled in East Chicago, Indiana, where Joe would relocate when he turned 18. A high school dropout, Joe got a job at a steel company but dreamed of being a boxer, and began training for it. He was briefly married but quickly had that union annulled after meeting a 17-year-old named Catherine Screws, whom he then wed on November 5, 1949. They moved to the industrial city of Gary, Indiana, and their first child, Maureen Rialette Reby Jackson, was born on May 29, 1950. The couple went on to have 9 more children, though one son, Brandon, died at birth. Jackson's first musical aspirations involved himself, years before he would set his children on the path to stardom. He and his brother, Luther, formed a blues band called the Falcons, but one of the members left to found his own band in 1952, a group called the Spaniels which found far more success than Jackson's band ever experienced. As his children grew older, however, Jackson recognized their own musical talent and spotted an opportunity. In 1963, sons Jackie, Tito and Jermaine founded the Jackson Brothers, and Joe managed them, entering the band in local talent competitions. 2 of Jackson's younger children, Marlon and Michael, had joined by 1965, and the group rebranded as the Jackson Five in 1966. Jackson was notoriously hard on them as manager. He also insisted that his children call him by his first name and not Dad. Moving on from local performances and competitions, Jackson eventually booked them in increasingly reputable venues, eventually getting the band a spot at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York, where they won Amateur Night and then a Motown recording contract. The Jackson Five became the first American group to have their first 4 singles go straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Jackson, a dandy who wore a pencil-thin mustache and huge diamond pinky ring, remained unapologetic about his hardline treatment of his children. "I'm glad I was tough, because look what I came out with," he said in a 2013 interview. "I came out with some kids that everybody loved all over the world. And they treated everybody right." His children, however, were not so enthusiastic in adulthood. "We'd perform for him and he'd critique us," Michael Jackson wrote in his 1985 autobiography Moonwalk. "If you messed up, you got hit, sometimes with a belt, sometimes with a switch. My father was real strict with us, real strict." Years later, in a 2003 interview, the King of Pop said that he would sometimes vomit or faint at the sight of his father because he was so scared of him. "We were terrified of him," Michael Jackson said. "Terrified. I don't think to this day he realizes how scared. Regardless of his methods, however, it was indisputable that Jackson was leading his children from professional strength to strength, and the whole family moved into a mansion in Encino, California. Randy, the youngest Jackson brother, replaced Jermaine in the mid-1970s when the group left Motown and became the Jacksons at CBS. Jermaine stayed behind and launched a solo career. Jackson was also managing his daughter Janet's burgeoning career, putting her in the Jacksons variety show in the early 1970s and overseeing her acting career on shows like Good Times. By the time they were adults, however, most of the Jackson siblings had dismissed Jackson as their manager. It also turned out that Jackson had been having a long-term affair, and hiding a secret family. He had met police secretary Cheryl Terrell at a Christmas party in the early 70s and struck up a relationship with her. Their child, Giovanni, was born on August 30, 1974, a day after Michael Jackson's 16th birthday. Jackson instilled his girlfriend and daughter in a home just 5 miles from the mansion he shared with his wife and other children. Daddy would come zooming through the gates in his 2-seater Mercedes or Rolls-Royce, Giovanni, now 43, told DailyMail.com earlier this year. He'd be hungry and his dinner would be cooked. My mother was an excellent cook. He would come round most days, sometimes without warning. He was very much a presence in my life. I was a daddy's girl. She fondly recalled watching 80s television shows with her father while they sat on the sofa eating popcorn together, and she always looked forward to the gifts Jackson would bring her. I would be so excited. He would bring me presents, my favorite black walnut ice cream. I was spoiled rotten, she said, adding, he would bring me dolls from every country he visited, China, England, Germany. When Jackson's wife, Catherine, found out about the affair, she filed for divorce, twice. But the couple remained married until his death this week, and Catherine was reportedly by his bedside, along with some of his children, when he passed away. And the affair was far from the only drama plaguing Jackson and the family. In addition to allegations of emotional and physical abuse from some of the children, daughter LaToya went so far as to accuse Jackson of sexual abuse in the early 1990s, when she was estranged from her entire family. She later recanted, however, saying her former husband had coerced her to make such claims. She and her father later reconciled. Jackson and his superstar son Michael, too, had a famously fractious relationship, though the father of 11 supported Michael through some of his most difficult times. During his 2004 molestation trial, Jackson was by his son's side. He was acquitted of all counts in 2005. Michael acknowledged the complicated history with his father in a 2001 speech about healthy relationships between parents and their children. I have begun to see that even my father's harshness was a kind of love, an imperfect love, to be sure, but love nonetheless. He pushed me because he loved me. Because he wanted no man ever to look down at his offspring, he said. And now with time, rather than bitterness, I feel blessing. In the place of anger, I have found absolution. And in the place of revenge I have found reconciliation. And my initial fury has slowly given way to forgiveness. That being said, towards the end of his life, Michael Jackson did not allow his father to visit his home. Bodyguards said they turned him away when he appeared at the gate wanting to visit his grandchildren. He also was not named in his son's will when Michael died on June 25, 2009. The elder Jackson's death this week came just 2 days after the 9th anniversary of Michael's passing. Joe Jackson actually sued when it was disclosed he wasn't included in the will. By 2005, no longer involved in his children's careers, Jackson had launched a boot camp for aspiring hip-hop artists, promoting lyrics without vulgarity and sponsoring competitions for young artists from across the country. He spent most of his time at a home in Las Vegas and traveled the country auditioning talent for the competition. Tributes began pouring in across the worlds of music and entertainment as news spread of his death, reportedly from pancreatic cancer. He is survived by his wife, children and more than 24 grandchildren. The relevant Jesse Jackson Sr. tweeted, "Joe Jackson, brother beloved, patriarch and creator of one of the most talented American musical dynasties. We will remember him as long as his family's music plays. Offering prayers and condolences to the Jackson family. The man. The family. The legend." Tweeted Wendy Williams. R.I.P. Joe Jackson, and thank you for giving us the many gifts of talent from your family, not just to our community on a whole, but to the entire world.